This is the Nightwolf howling at you, and today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends series, Spider-Man 77. This figure is based on what I believe was a made-for-TV movie about Spider-Man. This is based on a live-action movie that I believe was made for TV, aka it was the possible pilot for a series, about Spider-Man, obviously. And honestly, you can find this movie and the rest of the series, almost all the rest of the series, on YouTube if you look for it. This is, of course, the logo. I think, if I remember correctly, it would just kind of like flash down when you watch the show. And then we have on the side just kind of a close-up of his face, Spider 77 on it. Here we have a picture of him. I think this is when he's like trying to sneak around. And on the back, we have our usual product shot. This is saying that it was inspired by the 1977 Spider-Man movie. Let's go ahead and take a look at this sucker, shall we? Just a quick note, in these red areas you will notice that there is a white string there that I did not notice when I was originally recording this video, and there will be a comment later on making me feel really stupid now that I'm editing the video. Well, it looks like the peg holes are too small for the pegs on here, so I guess I won't be able to use that. Okay, so I do not actually have any Spider-Mans in my collection, so I don't have a Spider-Man body to compare this to. But I am assuming that this is just basically a standard Spider-Man sculpt with a new head. And just a note here, it does have kind of a live action picture of the city of New York. Pretty sure that's New York. And I think this is actually taken straight from one of the images from the show. So our Spider-Man here, who doesn't want to stand up on his own and doesn't really want to cooperate. Let's move this down. So let's talk about some of the accessories he comes with. He comes with, actually these hands might be more of a unique sculpt too, if I can hold them. They are in a weird kind of position, which I think he often had his hands like this in the show. Because I don't think there's any other reason for this to exist like this. We also have two sets of webbing here, which again, if you watch the movie, all the webbing basically looked like was a rope tied together, more or less. And here's a smaller one. Aside from maybe putting it inside the hands there, this is quite possibly some of the most useless extras that they could have given us. Having a second unmasked head of the actor's head might have been a little bit better. However, then they probably would have had to pay for likeness rights, and obviously they don't want to do that. So what's interesting to note about this Spider-Man, as you can see here, he's wearing a bracelet. I think the Japanese one did the same thing, actually. But that is specifically for his web shooter. And I want to say in the movie he only had one web shooter and he kept his cartridges attached up there. And then on his belt here, it was like Batman's utility belt with web cartridges as well. And it looks like it pops off pretty easily. It is molded in this kind of resembles silver, but not quite color. Almost like kind of like iridescent white. And again, like I'm saying, I don't have a Spider-Man to compare this to, but this does to me just seem like it's probably just a Spider-Man body with a new head and an extra set of hands. Oh, obviously the belt is new, and so is the web bracelet. What they probably should have done, though, however, was have this belt either connect at the buckle on the front here or in the back, because this looks terrible. If you can see that. Head sculpt wise, and I'm going to try to pop up a picture of the actual image from the show, because in the show, obviously he has this mask. They had silver eyelets on there, but it was basically like a silver plate with a bunch of holes in it for him to look out of. It's kind of funny. In later episodes with TV show, though, it was all black and not silver. But he has a pinless body, and again, I think this is probably just a modern Spider-Man figure, period. So let's check the articulation. His head has a hinge, or the neck does. The head does appear to be on a ball joint, although there's surprisingly little range of motion on here. Mostly our up and down is coming from that hinge, and the rest of the head doesn't really want to move. There's like no butterfly joint like we have with G.I. Joe. We have an ab crunch here. Our arm lifts up and down and can spin all around. His arm twists at the bicep. We have a double joint at the elbow. And the hand has a spin and up, in and out articulation on the wrist. Same with the other wrist. These hands also have in and out articulation. Let's actually swap one of these out. By the way, I'm kind of disappointed because they didn't sculpt the web shooter on here like they should have too. Because in the case of this Spider-Man, the whole web shooter part was very, very obvious. Almost like a child's toy. We have a spin at the waist. There's no like
drop down hips.
The legs can kick forward about that far, and we can kick back about that far. It does not have the up and down on the hip like the G.I. Joe figures have, or had in some cases. It's starting to look like they're taking that away from G.I. Joe. But we can still kick out, but only about that much. Again, without the drop down hips, we can't get a lower... The drop down hips are what allowed us to kind of like get the legs all the way to a straight line for the splits. We can spin the leg around. We have a double jointed knee here. There is no boot cut. There is a hinge at the ankle and a spin. The Marvel Legend figures are very, very cheaply made compared to G.I. Joe. I'm just going to say that outright. Now, one of the things that's kind of disappointing about this, though, from the 77, if you ever watched the 1977, right along here, there's a noticeable seam. Because in order for him to lift, take off, and put on the mask, the whole back part came off. So it's actually a really tight mask for all intents and purposes. So it looks like it's supposed to, but it's attached all the way on the shoulder, so it has to like flip all the way over, which is kind of cool, honestly. And it looks really nice in the show. Well, not really nice, but it looks more realistic in the show. Oh, man. I think it's kind of too bad that they didn't replicate the 1977 costume quite as well as they could have. It would have been nice if they'd spent the extra money for a seam, especially since this is, again, likely just a reuse of a Spider-Man body, that being shown as especially prevalent with the big ass hole in his back, which looks like it might have been designed for the Iron Spider legs. So maybe if you had the Iron Spider-Man, that might be the body that's being used for this. But if somebody does have that, let me know if that is what it is. I think the head sculpt looks pretty good though for trying to replicate the look. I mean, it probably would have been difficult for them to... Actually, no, it probably would not have been that difficult for them to like just kind of sculpt in the little divots in the lenses to mimic the way they looked in the show as well. So, while they are giving us the 1977 Spider-Man, it still kind of feels like they cheaped out on it. And honestly, those webs are just stupid. There's nothing really functional about them. You can't do anything with them. You probably would have been better off just giving us a web line with like something like that at the end, maybe, that you could attach to them. Also, it would have been kind of nice if they just gone all out and sculpted on the web shooter itself, like they probably should have, to make it more accurate as well. Because again, his web shooters were like on top of his gloves, not under them, as I recall. Hopefully by this point I've already put up a picture of what that looks like normally. The only other thing that seems kind of weird to me is the way the color meets down at the legs for the boot area. Besides the fact that we don't have a boot cut, it's pretty obvious that the blue and red paint are overlapping each other in some weird way, because there's just a line of this kind of lighter red to it, and I'm not quite sure why it's like that. But overall on this figure, I think it's cool. I don't regret buying it, although it was more expensive than it should have been. It was a Walmart exclusive, as so many other things, and it did not get canceled, surprisingly. Like most Walmart exclusives seems to. Or at least your order canceled, I should say. Still a bit bitter there on that crystal ball figure, not gonna lie. But why don't you guys go ahead and tell me what you think of this figure in the comments below. And if you like this review, please feel free to like the smash button. And if you want to hear more of my nonsense, please subscribe. I thank you for watching. Peace and love.